Buenos dias, my good people. Welcome back to Morning Bible Drive podcast with Pearl, where I share with you my morning devotion with hopes that it will inspire you to pick up your Bible and read it because this book is actually lit. Right. This morning, we are beginning to read, or we're starting. Which one is it? Beginning or starting? Wait. We're starting the book of First Chronicles, and thus I read First Chronicles chapter 1. It really is a chronicle. It starts off with the genealogy, or maybe the historical records from Adam to Abraham. Yes. Well, chapter 1 is the historical records from Adam to Esau, or the Edomites. Yeah, let me just say the Edomites. And I learned a couple of interesting things. So let's get right into this chapter. Now, the very first thing I learned is I cannot pronounce 90% of these names. So I'm not going to attempt to read them out to you guys. I'll just highlight the important figures, which I believe we all know. So, I want to say the second thing I learned, but the real first thing that I learned is that, or maybe the real first thing that I realized is that the descendants of Cain all got extinguished in the flood, right? Chapter 1 starts off by giving us the genealogy of Noah from Adam. It says to Noah's sons, Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah. And then the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, right? And we know that in Noah's time, there was a flood, a global flood, and only Noah and his family survived. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their 3 wives, right? And Noah is a descendant of Seth. And Adam had Seth and Cain and Abel, but Cain killed Abel. So he was left with Cain and Seth. But Cain got exiled. And then, there was that whole conundrum with the sons of God and the daughters of men, which, by the way, guys, the daughters of men are not, the sons of God are not angels. Okay? Human beings did not have children with angels. It's impossible. The sons of God are the descendants of Seth. And they're called the sons of God because the descendants of Seth are the ones who walked uprightly, right? When you read that account in the book of Genesis, you will realize that the descendants of Cain were evil. Right? After Cain got exiled for killing his brother Abel, Cain basically was left to his own devices. He continued sinning. Right? He continued living like the first murderer he was. So his daughters, who were wayward, started to attract, or maybe let me say the descendants of Seth, the sons of Seth, became attracted to the daughters of Cain. And like I said, the descendants of Seth were called the sons of men because they're the ones who walked uprightly. They're the ones who sought God, right? They're the ones, according to the spirit of prophecy, who kept going back to the entrance of the Garden of Eden to make sacrifices with hopes that one day they will be reconciled with God. I hope that makes sense. So angels do not have children with people. It's impossible. It is biologically impossible. It is impossible. It's impossible. Angels were not created to procreate. Human beings were. I hope that is clear. Thank you very much. All right. So the flood happened, right? And basically the descendants of Cain were all extinguished in the flood is what I'm learning, because in this record, the genealogy from Adam to Noah, these are the men who walked upright only. So it's safe to assume that Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enosh, Methuselah, Lamech, they did not have any relations with Cain's daughters, right? Because the result of having relations with Cain's daughters was an evil generation that caused God to regret creating this earth, that ultimately led God to making the decision to flood the entire earth. Right? And so, yeah, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, these people didn't have relations with Cain's daughters. Enoch is even the one who impressed God so much that God took him up to heaven. Yeah. And then we have Methuselah, who was the son of Enoch, Lamech, who was the son of Methuselah, and then Lamech is the father of Noah. So it's safe to assume that Cain's descendants got extinguished in the flood. Okay. Anyway, the next thing that I learned also now in the genealogy of the Hamites, we're given the genealogy of the Japhetites. Japhetites are the sons of Japheth, the son of Noah. Pretty standard. You can read it for yourself. But I'm just going to highlight what I learned from the genealogy of the Hamites, who are the sons of Ham, the son of Noah. Ham is the guy who laughed at his dad. Ham is the guy who laughed at his dad when his dad was drunk. But that's neither here nor there. I don't want to get into that whole conspiracy theory. Okay, I don't want to call it a conspiracy theory, but there are assumptions. We make assumptions that the African nation experienced the type of oppression it experienced, like slavery and all the things that we've experienced as Black people, because Ham laughed at Noah when Noah was drunk instead of covering his father. Because Noah did curse Ham. But Bible scholars and historians say the curse only applied to Ham. But I don't know, guys. That one needs a thorough Bible study. Because Noah did specifically say, maybe I might misquote Noah. Let me not get into it, right? But some Bible scholars say the curse that Noah put on Ham only applied to Ham. It didn't pass on to his descendants. Now, here's why I find the genealogy of the Hamites very interesting. The Bible says the sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Now, Cush is modern day Ethiopia. Yes, Cush is modern day Ethiopia. What I did not know is that Mizraim is modern day Egypt. I said, I discovered that on the footnote of my Bible. I said, oh, Mizraim is Egypt. Okay. And what I know is Bafokeng, Bazwa Echepeta. I am a Mofokeng. So Bafokeng come from Egypt. So every time I read about Egypt, I know that my ancestors lived there at one point. What I don't know is, were they the Egyptians of that time? I still need to study the history of Egypt properly and thoroughly. Were Egyptians Black? And then maybe with the whole introduction of, because at some point Egypt was under the rulership of Greece, maybe some Greeks came to Egypt and even some Romans came to Egypt, and there was an amalgamation of sorts, and that's why Egyptians look the way they look now. But originally they were Black. I don't know. These are questions I'm asking myself, and hopefully someone who's just as much of a history enthusiast as I am will enlighten me. But what I know is Bafokeng Bazwa Echepeta, and I am a Mofokeng. So my ancestors come from Egypt. That I know. So yeah, basically, I might be a Hamite. Who knows? Who knows? I might be a Hamite. It's very possible. Plus, also Ham is the father of Africans. I feel like Africans are Hamites. I strongly believe Africans are Hamites. You guys will correct me if I'm wrong, but I really strongly believe this. I believe Ham is the father of all Africans. And Mizraim is my great-great-grandfather. So, yeah, guys. Let me look for the next thing that I learned. Now, also when you read the genealogy of the Hamites, you see that one of the sons of Ham was Canaan. And also you see that Cush was the father of Nimrod, who grew to be a mighty warrior on earth. I want to touch on those 2 points that I just made. I'm going to start with Cush and Nimrod. We know that Nimrod is the one who incited the people to build the Tower of Babel. And in the building of the Tower of Babel, God confused their language, and hence Babel means confusion. It's a variant of confusion, of the word confusion. And we know that Babel is the breeding ground, for lack of a better term, for Babylon, right? So Babylon comes from Babel, right? So the Chaldeans, maybe it's safe to say, were fathered by Nimrod. Yeah, anyway. And then we have Mizraim, obviously, which means Egypt. He's the father of the Egyptians. He's also the father of the Philistines. Very interesting. Mizraim is also the father of the Philistines, right? And then we have Canaan, who's the father of the Jebusites, Amorites. And when you read this, as I'm reading this to you right now, I'm reminded of the curse of Noah. Noah did say that, I'm paraphrasing it because I don't want you to hold me by my words. So I am paraphrasing roughly what Noah said to Ham, the curse that Noah spoke against Ham. He said that Ham would be oppressed by his brothers, right? He would be not oppressed, but how do I put this? He would be a subject to his brothers, Japheth and Shem, right? When you look at the genealogy of the Hamites, you see that these are the people who were always constantly fighting the Israelites. At some point, aka Mizraim's point, the descendants of Hamites had the Israelites as slaves, right? We know that the Israelites were slaves to the Egyptians for a long time. They sojourned in Egypt for 430 years, for about 430 years, and they were slaves for about 80 years of that time period. Yeah, roughly, let me make a big estimate and say maybe 100 years of those 400 years, they were slaves, right? Roughly estimating, guys. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. So it's very interesting to realize that the descendants of Ham were the major nemesis of the descendants of Abraham, which are the Israelites. Now, maybe for the sake of context, because also as I was reading about the descendants of Canaan, Canaan is the son of Ham. These are the Jebusites, the Hittites, the people that God allowed the Israelites to defeat as they were inhabiting Canaan, right? When the Israelites were delivered from Egypt and taken to Canaan, right? They were supposed to drive out the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the people who lived in Canaan, right? And these are the sons of Canaan. And these are the Hamites. So you kind of see the curse of Noah play out in that the Israelites, by the way, are from Shem. They're the descendants of Shem. They're the Semites. We'll get to that. You kind of see it play out in that the descendants of Shem drove out and defeated and turned the Hamites into their subservience. So you kind of see that curse play out, right? Again, like I said, when it comes to the slavery of black people, honestly, I don't want to get into that one because I don't know. I don't want to get into that one because I don't know if that is still a part of Noah's curse. Now let's get into the descendants of Shem. Okay, like I said, I'm not going to attempt to read out these names to you guys. I'm just going to focus on Shem's descendants that lead directly to Abraham. Okay, so I'm just going to focus on Abraham's genealogy. So yeah, that's in First Chronicles 1 verse 24 to 27. It says, Shem, Arphaxad is the son of Shem. And then Arphaxad, the father of Shelah, Shelah, the father of Eber, Eber, the father of Peleg, Peleg, the father of Reu, Reu, the father of Serug, Serug, the father of Nahor, Nahor, the father of Terah, Terah, the father of Abram, that is Abraham. What I found very interesting in the historical record of Abram's family is that it starts off by saying the sons of Abraham were Isaac and Ishmael. And then it gives us 3 categories: the descendants of Hagar, Hagar, the mother of Ishmael, the descendants of Keturah, Keturah, the concubine of Abraham, and the descendants of Sarah, Sarah, the beloved wife of Abraham. So it made me wonder, why aren't Keturah's son, or why isn't Keturah's son listed under the sons of Abraham? Why is it just Hagar and Sarah's sons who are listed as sons of Abraham? Those who know will let me know. I don't know. But I found that to be very intriguing. I'm just going to jump right on to Sarah's descendants. And we know that is Isaac. And then Isaac had Esau and Israel. I find it very interesting also that First Chronicles names Israel by his new name. He's not named Jacob. To me, that just highlighted the transformative power of God in one's life. You know, the fact that Jacob's name really changed after that wrestle with God, and he was now Israel. And that was it. That was it. Israel. And also remembering that Jacob, the meaning of Jacob had a very bad connotation. It meant swindler. It meant, and then, he got this beautiful new name called Israel. One other thing that I found very interesting is that Amalek is a descendant of Esau. And we know that the people of Amalek, I'm not going to call them by their name because that name really bamboozles me. It throws me up, down, and about, round and round and round. So I'm just going to call them the people of Amalek. The people of Amalek are the same people who decided to attack the Israelites. You guys remember when Israel was delivered from Egypt, right? And they were on their sojourn to Canaan. They were met by the people of Amalek, who out of nowhere just wanted to attack the Israelites. They had heard of the God of Israel, and they openly decided to defy him. They thought to themselves, the God of Israel, he did what to the Egyptians? Watch us. Please, the Egyptians are little boys now. They don't know how to do this thing. Let's show you. Let us show you how we can handle the Israelites. And God said, pardon? Excuse me? Surely you're not talking about my people. Surely you're not trying to challenge me. Because I will show you flames. So those are the people of Amalek. And it's very interesting to then realize that these people are the descendants of Esau. So you see that beef between Esau and Israel is still continuing generations later, even though Esau and Israel made amends. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And thereafter, we were given the historical record of the people of Seir in Edom, the rulers of Edom, and that is how First Chronicles chapter 1 ends. When I read on the rulers of Edom, I was reminded of the fact that at around this time, I think I'm right. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, at around this time, all these Gentile nations, by Gentile we mean nations, basically. How else do I explain it? But nations that were that had followed the self-sustenance philosophy, right? The self-governance philosophy, right? Because initially, God did not create, initially, and even now it still applies. God never created human beings to rule over other human beings. Ever. Never, ever. The only thing we were given dominion over was animals and the land. We were never given dominion over each other. Right? But when sin entered and human beings flirted with the idea of governing themselves, that is where the whole self-governance philosophy started. That is where you now see human beings governing or ruling over other human beings. And you see God combating that or trying to rectify that philosophy by not having Israel have a king. If you remember, Israel is the one that asked for a king. The Israelites are the ones who asked for a king for themselves, and God was against that. He even told them that if you guys want a king, the king is going to shambok you. And he gave them a whole entire list of how the king would oppress them, how a human monarch would oppress them. And he even told Samuel, listen, Samuel, don't be angry. It is not you that these people have rejected. It is me. They've rejected me as their king. So God was trying to correct the self-governance philosophy that the Gentile nations had adopted, right? God was basically trying to show these Gentile nations through the nation of Israel that, hey, guys, I'm your king. I'm the one who's supposed to rule over you guys. I'm your king. I'm the one who is well equipped to rule over you. You guys are not created to have dominion over one another, right? So when I read this account of the rulers of Edom, I was reminded of that at this time, the Gentile nations were, had human kings, right? They were really pushing this self-governance philosophy. And Israel had God as their king, and they had judges as liaisons who would communicate with God and the people. Yeah. That was the structure. That was the ideal structure that God had established. We were supposed to have God as our sovereign king, and then judges who would liaison between us and God. But the Israelites decided, no, we want to be like the Gentile nations and we want to have our own human king. I don't know why. I don't know why they were undermining God like that. God is not doing a good job. That time, he's the one who is well equipped to rule over human beings. Hey, sin will make you do stupid things. I promise you, sin will make you do really stupid things. And when you look at the history of humanity as it is right now, when you look at the situation of humanity in regards to rulership, you realize that human beings cannot govern other human beings. There's no getting better. There's no getting better. No matter how much a ruling party, or maybe like a party, a political party can campaign, all the nice things they can promise us, they always seem to get it wrong. There's no getting better, guys. Human beings, it's just evidence that human beings were not created to have dominion over other human beings. That's why you will never in this life find a monarch, find a president, find a prime minister who will get it right. You will never, even the next political party you're going to elect to rule over you is still going to fumble. Even the next king who's going to succeed the current king is still going to fumble. Because human beings were not created to have dominion over other human beings. God is our initial and perfect sovereign ruler. But because of sin, we don't want to listen to God. We think he's joking when he's speaking. We think he's making suggestions and suppositions when he speaks. Anyway, guys, this is the end of today's reading. I tried to extend it as much as possible. I hope this reading inspired you to pick up your Bible and read it because it is such a literation. But above all, I hope God was able to speak to you through this message. I will catch you guys tomorrow. Hasta luego.